Says Natalie Wood apparently slipped, hit her head.
The coroner's office said today that actress Natalie Wood was intoxicated and angry after an argument between...
Attempted to board this rubber dinghy. It was here that she fell.
On that icy November night in 1981, Natalie Wood vanished from the yacht Splendor, and by sunrise her body was drifting in the pitch-black water, still wearing her thin nightgown and that deep red coat that looked almost unreal under the morning light. The official report called it an accident, saying she slipped while trying to tie the dinghy, but the bruises, the scratches, and her lifelong fear of water had people whispering fast. Friends had already said Wagner sometimes lost control with her, and the old talk of jealousy and late-night fights came rushing back. Some even repeated stories of a fiery argument that night, one moment that might have tipped everything into tragedy. Police reopened the case, witnesses stepped forward, but the truth stayed buried under that cold water where Natalie took her last breath. Now, at 95, Robert Wagner finally speaks, his shaky voice pulling out memories he once tried to bury. He admits, "There are many things I wish I could change," a line that only raises more questions. The night of November 28th started like a normal Hollywood getaway. Natalie, Wagner, Walken, and Captain Dennis Davern laughing, drinking, and drifting near Catalina Island. But as the sky darkened, tension started creeping in, the kind you feel before something snaps. No one knew that the weekend trip would turn into one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries, with Natalie, terrified of deep water, stepping straight into her final hours. What looked like a perfect getaway carried hidden stress, unspoken issues, and pressure from living under the spotlight. Behind the smiles, the storm had already started building. That night, the wild history between Natalie Wood and Robert Wagner boiled back to the surface, the kind of love that could shine or blow up without warning. They had been on and off since the 1950s, and on the Splendor, that tension returned fast. Christopher Walken's presence, Natalie's co-star, only made things heavier, especially with Wagner feeling insecure every time he noticed how close they seemed. Captain Dennis Davern later said the evening started calm, but once the bottles opened, the mood snapped. In the tight cabin, voices rose, emotions cracked, and the vibe turned explosive. Wine splashed everywhere, but the real damage came when tempers blew. Davern said he heard Wagner yelling at Wood, "Get off my damn boat!" His jealousy fired up after seeing her talking quietly with Walken. Soon after, Natalie, wearing her thin nightgown, a feathered robe, flannel nightdress, and socks, slipped away from the deck and vanished into the darkness without a sound. Davern claimed Wagner blocked anyone from turning on the searchlights and said, "Leave her there, let her learn a lesson." That statement still chills people today. Natalie had feared deep water her entire life, so the idea she'd suddenly try to handle the yacht's dinghy alone didn't sit right with anyone. Two people on a nearby boat later said they heard a woman screaming for help in the night, but nobody moved. When dawn hit on November 29th, the truth surfaced. Natalie Wood's body was found floating face down nearly a mile from the Splendor. Her nightgown clinging to her like the ocean refused to let go. The yacht's dinghy, Valiant, was discovered drifting near the shore, completely out of place and raising even more questions. The autopsy by Dr. Thomas Noguchi showed her blood alcohol level was 0.19% mixed with seasickness and pain meds, leaving her barely able to stand. Fresh bruises covered her arms, wrists, and knees, and scratches marked her face and neck, marks that didn't match a simple slip into a boat. The investigation rolled on. Wagner insisted he was innocent and kept quiet in public, while Walken disappeared from all discussion. Captain Davern, however, kept saying he heard a blow-up fight and believed the real story had been hidden for decades. For years, the truth stayed buried under silence, drifting through whispers and rumor. Wagner's and Walken's first statements were shaky. Wagner claimed there was no real fight and said Natalie might have tried to take the dinghy to shore, a story that never made sense because she was terrified of deep water. Walken admitted there was tension, especially when Natalie talked about putting more focus on her career, something Wagner didn't like. The case sat closed until 2011 when Captain Dennis Davern finally spoke up. He admitted he held back the real story, that Wagner stopped the search and even kept drinking after Natalie disappeared. Davern said he heard a sound like someone being pushed into the water, followed by Wagner's chilling words, "Leave her there." Two witnesses also confirmed hearing a woman crying for help that night, pushing the LAPD to reopen the case and change her cause of death to drowning and other undetermined factors. Wagner kept denying wrongdoing. He said he and Natalie argued about work and Christopher Walken before she walked off. "I was angry. Maybe I overreacted," he said, insisting he thought she just needed space. But his story had gaps. No one saw Natalie leave, and no one knew how she ended up in the water. People on nearby boats reported yelling and loud crashes, raising even more suspicion. Wagner later admitted he smashed a wine bottle during the fight, which made the public think the argument was way harsher than he let on. In his memoir, Pieces of My Heart, he wrote, "I just wanted peace, but everything spiraled until she was gone." He said he ran through the yacht calling for her, thinking she was hiding, until he saw the dinghy missing and felt his heart drop. But one line made people stare harder. "I thought she was just angry." If that was true, why did hours pass before anyone reported her missing? When asked if he felt responsible, Wagner paused before saying, "I was the last man with her. I can't deny that." Wagner once said, "I don't know. All I know is that since that night, I've never been the same." And those words followed him for decades like a shadow he could never outrun. Some people close to him, like Jill St. John, stood by him, but plenty of others stayed doubtful. In 2018, his name exploded back into headlines when police labeled him a person of interest, saying Natalie's bruises lined up with possible assault. Lieutenant John Corina stated Wagner was the last person with her and pointed out how his story kept shifting. Two new witnesses added more heat. One claimed to hear shouting from the Splendor cabin. Another remembered moments where Wagner treated Natalie roughly years earlier. Wagner, already in his late 80s, denied everything through his lawyer, calling it unfair, while Walken stayed totally quiet. Even after the case reopened, answers stayed blurry. In 2022, Wagner was cleared due to lack of proof, but the case wasn't closed. In 2024, two more witnesses came forward. One who said he heard a woman crying for help that night, and another who remembered tense moments between the couple back in the 1960s. Author Marty Rulli even pushed for charges, writing in Natalie Wood and the Devil. She knew that Wagner should face justice, but every new detail felt like a quick flash of light before fading back into darkness. People kept asking, did Natalie slip while intoxicated, or was someone's jealousy involved? Was she pushed, or did something else happen in that cabin? Investigators replayed every moment. The first red flag was the 4-hour delay before Wagner reported her missing. She was last seen around 11 p.m., yet the Coast Guard wasn't called until 3:30 a.m. Captain Dennis Davern said he begged Wagner to turn on the searchlights, but Wagner allegedly told him, "Dennis, don't turn that on." During those long hours, no one searched. Everyone just waited, unsure and frozen in place. Davern later admitted his first statement was watered down because he felt pressured, and once he broke that silence, the story took a darker turn. Davern later said Wagner told him straight up, "Don't call for help, don't use the spotlight, don't alert anyone." He claimed Wagner even warned him to stay silent if questioned. Harbor Master Doug Den backed this up, saying he practically had to force Wagner to agree. before the Coast Guard was finally contacted at 3:30 a.m. The autopsy brought even darker details. Natalie had bruises on her arms and face, plus scratches on her neck. Marks experts said happened before she hit the water. Her blood alcohol level was 0.14% with seasickness meds and painkillers in her system, meaning she would have been unsteady. So, if it was an accident, why did her body show signs of a struggle? Wagner said she went to check the dinghy lines, but that didn't add up. The dinghy was found with the key still in place, engine off, oars tied down, like no one ever touched it. Walken admitted there was a blow-up fight before she vanished, and Davern said he heard thuds, raised voices, then sudden silence. Wagner denied anything intense, yet in his own memoir, he admitted there was a confrontation. The most chilling voices came from Marilyn Wayne and John Payne on the nearby yacht Capricorn. They said they heard a woman screaming, "Help me, someone, please help me," for nearly 15 minutes. Wayne turned on her deck light, then heard a calm male voice say, "Okay, honey, we'll get you," before everything went quiet. No engine, no movement, just silence. Only a few boats were out there that night, raising the question, who was that man? If it was Wagner, that soft, "Okay, honey" could have been the last words Natalie ever heard. And strangely, Wagner later claimed he was searching inside the yacht during that exact time and heard nothing from the water. What made everything even more frightening was Marilyn Wayne's later claim that she was threatened after speaking up. She said someone slipped a note into her mailbox that read, "If you value your life, keep quiet about what you know." The person behind it was never found. Wayne still insists the screams she heard that night were real, so real she never forgot them. Investigators believed Wagner's motive could have been jealousy. That night's party reportedly blew up into a heated fight after he accused Natalie of being too close to Christopher Walken. In 2012, after a full review of the case, the L.A. County coroner changed Natalie's cause of death to drowning and other undetermined factors, a move that reopened everything. Police said Wagner's statements didn't match the physical evidence and named him a person of interest, though nothing ever proved he harmed her. But silence from that night stayed loud. 3 men, 3 different stories, and a star who never got to speak for herself. One person, though, refused to let the case fade, Natalie's sister, Lana Wood. For decades, she spoke out, saying with absolute certainty, "I believe Robert killed my sister." She pointed to his refusal to cooperate during every reopened investigation from 2011 to 2018, calling it the biggest red flag. In her memoir, Little Sister, Lana wrote that Captain Dennis Davern privately admitted he lied to protect Wagner. He told her there was a violent argument, a loud bang, shouting, and then Wagner's order, "Don't turn on the lights, don't call anyone." Lana said that confirmed her worst fears, that Wagner lost control in anger and left Natalie in the freezing dark. What shattered Lana most was knowing Natalie's lifelong fear of deep water. She nearly drowned during a film shoot as a child, and that fear stayed with her forever, making her disappearance that night even harder to believe. Lana Wood always said the same thing with absolute certainty. "My sister would never have stepped into a dinghy at night, especially not in the cold wearing just a nightgown." To her, calling it an accident wasn't just wrong, it felt like disrespect. The Hollywood love story people once adored had turned into something cold and haunting, with Wagner standing like a ghost, carrying secrets no one could prove or erase. Decades later, the case became legend, but the pain never faded. For Natalie's family, for Robert, and for fans who grew up watching her, her death stayed a wound that never healed. Every time her name came up, the darkness of that night returned, and Wagner, whether guilty or not, remained tied to it. After Natalie died, Wagner slipped into the shadows. The once charming TV star became quiet, withdrawn, almost unrecognizable. Cameras followed him, people speculated, police questioned him, but he barely spoke. "When Natalie died, I thought my life ended too," he murmured in one interview. As he reached his 90s, age softened his defenses. His health faded, and he started opening old doors he'd kept locked for decades. Every time someone mentioned Natalie, his face changed, like he was dragged back into that night all over again. Whether the truth ever comes out or not, he carried that weight like it was chained to his soul. "I will never truly understand what happened that night," he admitted, his voice shaking. "I ask myself every day, what if I had done something differently?" Those words showed the torment he never escaped. "In pieces of my heart," Wagner wrote, "not a day goes by that I don't think of Natalie. I loved her with all my heart." But the public didn't accept those lines so easily. The mixed stories, the silence during the screams, the bruises, the long delay before calling for help. Those details kept people divided and suspicious, even 40 years later. Some people believed Wagner carried guilt, not crime, while others stayed convinced the real truth from that night was still hidden. For years, the world painted him as the villain, but behind the noise was an aging man who'd lost the love of his life and slowly disappeared from public life under the weight of it all. Natalie's daughter, Natasha Gregson Wagner, defended him again and again. "He loved my mother deeply. Whatever happened that night, it wasn't murder, it was a tragedy. Many thought she chose loyalty over facts, but to her it wasn't a choice. I can feel his sadness every day," she said. "It's a heaviness, so real." In her memoir, More Than Love, she revealed how Wagner avoided the ocean and went silent whenever he saw Natalie's photo, walking away without a word. Her memories showed a family shaped by grief, not just headlines. Friends said Wagner grew fragile but peaceful, finding comfort in his grandkids and in remembering who Natalie was, the fire in her eyes, the way she lit up a room. To him, she wasn't just a star. She was his direction in life, and losing her left him drifting in a cold, unfamiliar world. By 2025, as his health faded, Wagner spoke publicly one last time. "People call me a monster, a liar, a coward," he said, voice soft but heavy. "But the truth is simpler. I was a man in love who made mistakes, and I've paid for them every single day since." It wasn't a confession, but the regret in his voice was impossible to miss. For once, people saw the real person behind the glamorous Hollywood image, a worn-down man finally facing the past. The memories of Natalie stayed with him like a light in the darkness. To those closest to him, he wasn't just a famous actor. He was a father and a husband who loved deeply and lived with heartbreak. When news of his passing spread, Hollywood paused, remembering the complicated life he carried on his shoulders. Some people remembered Wagner for his long career, his charm, and the powerful love he shared with Natalie Wood. Others remembered the questions that followed him to the end, questions no one ever fully answered. But in the quiet moments after his passing, many felt that maybe Robert and Natalie finally found the peace life never gave them. His legacy became a mix of love, sorrow, and the heavy pain he carried until his final days. Whether the truth of that night near Catalina Island ever comes out, their story will always be tied to love and heartbreak. From the start, their marriage was filled with sparks and storms. Hollywood saw them as perfect, but behind the scenes, things were far more complicated. They met when Natalie was 10 and Wagner was 18. She whispered, "I'm going to marry that man," and years later, she did. Hollywood adored them, the dream couple. When Wagner proposed, he hid a pearl ring in a champagne glass, and Natalie said yes through tears. Their 1957 wedding looked like a movie scene. The glowing 19-year-old bride and the polished young star by her side. But fame didn't make life easier. Two young actors, drowning in attention and pressure, had to learn how to actually live together. At first, Wagner made Natalie feel safe, grounded, protected, but as her career exploded with Rebel Without a Cause and West Side Story, he fell into smaller roles, and a quiet jealousy grew in the background. The cracks showed in tiny ways, cold silences, tense nights after parties, and moments where Natalie begged for independence while Wagner wanted her home with him. Friends remembered seeing her cry backstage, worn down by rumors, pressure, and a marriage that felt tighter every year. In 1962, Natalie filed for divorce, shocking Hollywood. Everyone thought their fairy tale would last forever, but real life hit harder than the movies. Still, their love didn't die out. Almost a decade later, after both survived broken marriages, they found their way back to each other. In 1972, they remarried in a small, quiet ceremony on a yacht off Malibu. Natalie later said, "I think we went through hell to find each other again." They had their daughter, Courtney, and on the surface things looked calm. But underneath, old wounds never fully healed. Wagner's career took off with Heart to Heart, while Natalie prepared for her comeback in Brainstorm. Her growing closeness with Christopher Walken made Wagner uneasy. Friends said his jealousy built slowly, quiet, heavy, dangerous, until it finally erupted. By the night of November 28, 1981, that tension was a storm waiting to break. Seeing Natalie laughing with Walken, a rising star, pushed every buried fear inside Wagner. Some believe that moment snapped something in him. Whatever really happened, that night remains one of Hollywood's darkest mysteries. Natalie Wood, brilliant, beloved, unforgettable, died in the freezing ocean, taking the truth with her. Police, witnesses, journalists. Everyone has said their piece. But one question still haunts the world. What truly happened aboard the Splendor that night? Was it misfortune? A jealous outburst? Or a truth buried under fame and silence? And now it's your turn. What do you believe happened out there? Drop your theory in the comments. Like, share, subscribe to Secret America channel. If you love hidden Hollywood stories, unsolved mysteries, and truths long forgotten, make sure you tap that bell. Every story brings us closer to the light, and you might be the one who helps uncover it.